let's see what this call is real quick. Well, that got everybody's attention, so let's go ahead and... If you don't have handouts, we do have some more handouts for the smoke report and also for the daily update for the Rock Mountain Fire on this side. If you need a seat, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a few seats you could fill in if you like. There is a sign-in sheet. The sign-in sheet is merely if you want email updates. You don't have to sign in. We're not going to keep your information after this fire. But if you want to get the morning update from the fire, how much it grew, containment, what our operational plan is, the activities from the night before, that's what that email sheet is for. That's all over here, and you don't have to do it right this minute. You can, but we can also do it afterwards. And there's also little business cards that'll have all of the fire information for the phone number you can call to get the information line from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. There's an email address on there. There's a Twitter feed, Facebook, InstaWeb, and that way you can feel like you can get all the information from the comfort of your home or wherever you are. So with that, we'll go ahead and start tonight. Thank you so much for all coming. This crowd is fantastic. Thanks for coming out on a Tuesday night just before Thanksgiving. I want to thank the Otto Fire Department and all their volunteer firefighters and their special thanks to Chief Rotar and Assistant Chief Kevin Fountain for having them put all this, all the chairs and everything together for us. We're going to start off tonight. I'm going to introduce, well, we have a whole bunch of guests to introduce. Oh, we're going to have a speaking part first, and then we'll have question and answer, and there'll be lots of that. So don't feel like you have to jump in with questions throughout the presentation. We can stay here well afterwards and answer all kinds of questions. So first we'll introduce our United States Forest Service District Ranger, Mike Wilkins. He's from the Napa-Halo District here. And then also Benji Reese, who's the North Carolina State Forest Service rep. Mike?
So good evening. We hate to impact you with so much smoke, but you know, it started down in Georgia and it just keeps coming. Just keeps coming. So I'm the local district ranger. My office sits in Franklin. And so Benji and I just wanted to welcome you just a little bit. The incident management team is managing this fire, and I do that same kind of thing as part of my professional job. So they're doing their very best to fight this thing, but it's going to impact you. So we asked to have a meeting, and y'all have been breathing the smoke a little bit. So they'll kind of give you a good overview of where the fire is. We'll have some questions as a group, but then their ops people, their people, me and Benji, we're going to be here as long as somebody wants to ask a question after the formal part's over. So we just want you to be pretty informal, and we'll just treat you as neighbors because we are. And we just thank you for your time, and you just need to be patient with us. There's a lot of stuff going on in the region. We're at historic dryness for fuel levels. You know, we normally do, to give it a little picture, we normally do prescribed burning 3 or 4 times in the fall after the leaves come down. Right now, we would have to have 5 inches of rain before we would consider even a prescribed burn. So that's kind of where we are. And we've had just tremendously low humidities and wind events. So anyway, it's just an unusual season. So anyway, I'll turn it over to Benji, and then we'll give it back to our facilitator today.
Thank you, Mike. The reason that North Carolina Forest Service here, a lot of you don't know the difference. They handle the federal side of things, where we handle more of the private side. All of you people in here, we hold the shared interest in what you've got going on. And we've actually got people embedded into this team to help facilitate getting all the local knowledge out, along with the fire departments and all that. So we don't want none of you to feel like we've just stepped out the side door and just left you have it. But we are here for you. I work out of the Selva office. That's our district office for all 7 western counties. So if you do have any questions for us or anything like that, feel free to call our district office and we'll take care of it that way. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Benji. And I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Kel Casey with the Pacific Northwest Team 3 Information Officer and your facilitator. If you need a restroom, they're in the corner. If you could just turn your cell phones on to vibrate, If you have a radio and you're not working for Otto Fire Rescue, please turn that off too. We've had some VIP and dignitaries to introduce tonight. There's a long list. We have Macon County Commissioners Gary Shields and Ronnie Beal here. We have Macon County Sheriff Robert Hollard. Holland. That's my handwriting. We have the Alan Wickless was here with the Forest Service. He's the United States Forest Service supervisor for all of North Carolina. We have the Macon County EMS coordinator, Todd Dostin. We have the Macon County manager, Derek Rowland. Macon County ranger, Benji Reese. The Macon County Public Health Director, Jim Bruckner, and his Ops Chief, Tammy Kieser, there in the back with the nice posters and handouts. We have Macon County Public Health Information Officer, Kathy McAha. And I'm going to introduce now from the North Carolina Forest Service, Greg Smith. He's going to give you an update on the state of emergency and the burn ban. And then right after Greg will be Amanda McAdams, who's the agency representative for the North Carolina United States Forest Service. Greg.
Thanks, Gil. Good evening. So, I want to talk a little bit about the North Carolina Forest Service, a little bit more to you. I also want to talk about the state of the situation of North Carolina itself. You're going to hear a little bit more about what's going on in the area from the National Forest of North Carolina agency rep that's here. But a couple things I want to discuss tonight and give you some information on is one, North Carolina was put in a state of emergency by our governor. And we've been in a state of emergency for some time now. So one, I just wanted to give you a few ideas of what that means to you. One is it actually initiates the state emergency operations or state emergency action plan. And so what that means is it allows us as other state agencies to come together and work in a kind of unified structure so that we can get more resources to help with a lot of different things that go on these type of disasters, whether it's hurricanes or whether it's wildfires. So that allows us access to other agencies across the state. That includes law enforcement, includes other folks that can help out National Guard, includes other fire response agencies, and we can kind of take a unified approach and get those resources tied together. The other thing that does, the state of emergency does, is it opens up for the governor's kind of rainy day fund for emergencies, I guess is the best way to put it. It opens up the state emergency budgets and to help with some of the costs of some of the disasters around. So when the state of emergency was declared for the wildfires, that's the two big things that comes to my mind, is it opens up the opportunity for us to work with other cooperating agencies across the state and allow access to those, and it also allows us to get into some of the emergency funding that's designated every year for the state of North Carolina. Next thing I want to talk about real quick was the burning ban. And so today, I think it was this morning, we initiated we extended the burning ban in an additional 22 counties across the state of North Carolina. So it started with 25, we've added 22, so we're up to 47 counties in the western part of North Carolina now that are under a burning ban. So what that means is that the North Carolina Forest Service, basically our burning ban halts all burning that's outside of 100 foot of an occupied dwelling. Now, most every fire marshal in all the other counties have went right alongside the Forest Service, and they've imposed a burning ban in the 100 foot area within an occupied dwelling. So really the burning ban is effective throughout the entire county and throughout those all 47 counties. So we can talk about it if you have questions after that. The burning ban lift, obviously it's not time, it won't be a time anytime soon it'll be lifted. It'll be after basically a season ending event. And so you can anticipate that burning ban being in effect for quite some time. While we're on that subject, we all know why you're here, and we're here to get some information on the fire that we're dealing with, the Rock Mountain fire that's moved into North Carolina. So why am I here? Why am I attached to this? And one is I couldn't get the state boundary moved. So I didn't quite have the politics to do that. So North Carolina Forest Service became a pretty big player and will continue to be, along with the Macon County Emergency Services. And that includes your fire department, potentially some of the medical emergency response here in the county. So we're all going to kind of work this together. There is an incident management team in place. You're going to hear from their incident commander here in a few minutes. And he's going to give you a few details on what that is composed of and how it works together. And he's going to give you some further details on the fire. But what I did want to mention tonight is this fire will come down and be in the vicinity of structures. And you'll hear from their operations chief and Noel, their IC, tonight about what they're planning to do. But I wanted to let you know that we could really use your support when it gets time for us to do work around your structures. North Carolina Forest Service, obviously we have the jurisdiction around the private land, and the team has brought us in play, and I'm the coordinator, I'm actually the representative to this team on the behalf of the North Carolina Forest Service as well as the private landowners. So you're going to see crews in there working around your structures out there. You're going to see crews in there with equipment, and we ask for you to please be patient with these guys. They're trying to make sure they look after your interests, your values. There probably will be some dozer line put in. With the way these fires are burning, if we're going in with just minimal impact stuff in certain areas, it's just not holding. So there will be some dozer line put on some property. They're making every attempt to try to keep that on U.S. Forest Service land where they can, but there will potentially be some private land impacted. And so I just wanted to prepare you for that. You also will see crews in there with leaf blowers. You'll see them in there doing work with tools and other things. And they also will be around your structures. So if you see somebody out walking around your house, which most of that area will be evacuated, please don't be alarmed, and please don't go pulling a gun on them. What they're there to do is to prep your structures and make sure the leaves and stuff are removed from gutters, check your structures over, make sure you have a safe distance, so if any embers or any fire comes near your structure, your house is safe. The last thing I wanted to address is, and thank Macon County Fire Department, because they're going to be providing a lot of support here coming up. And then we're also interjecting North Carolina Forest Resources in the mix. We had a North Carolina Forest Service dozer out working with the team today, and we also had some of our overhead out there tying in with this team's overhead. And the reason that's important is obviously we marry up with this team so that we're not out there duplicating efforts and people are not out running in different directions. And so we're working underneath this team's management. And with that being said, I want to tell you a little bit about this team that's here. And it's a Pacific Northwest team called PNW3, and they are a high-functioning, very competent group of folks. I've had a chance to go out in the Pacific Northwest myself over the last 3 years in Oregon, and they worked a lot in Washington, and I've either run into these guys and these gals on fires out there, or I've followed in behind them and worked alongside with these folks. And so they have your best interest in mind. Like I said, they're very high-functioning, and they're very competent, and they know their job well. So they've got your best interest in mind. We appreciate them being here, and thanks for having me tonight.
Thanks, Greg. And Amanda McAdams will tell you about the Forest Service side of North Carolina.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amanda McAdams. I'm actually the forest supervisor on the Modoc National Forest, which is in California. And I think that should be representative to you of what we're doing to make sure that these forests and these areas are protected. I actually grew up in North Carolina. This is my home ground, and I raised my hand real quickly to come. What I'm doing here tonight is letting you guys know what's going on in the Southeast in general and how this fire fits within that picture. So the Rocky Mountain Fire started in Georgia, has moved into North. The fire being managed by a team. Dix Creek, 700 acres. Knob, 1,100 acres. Tellico, almost 14,000 acres. Boteler, 9,000 acres. Maple Springs, 8,000 acres. And we just had a team take over a fire in McDowell County that's 1,100 acres. The Party Rock fire near Lake Lure, another 7,000 acres. I don't know if I can say this unprecedented. I'm probably not old enough. But I will tell you that this is something we don't see very often. And when you put all of that in context of the western fire season's pretty much over outside Southern California, the availability of crews and resources is a challenge to get the right people on these fires, but we're doing everything we can to ship folks from California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska. We had some folks raise their hands from Hawaii this morning. 24 states are represented on this fire, and those are not only federal agencies, but state agencies and local cooperators. So we're doing everything we can to get folks here to fight this fire because we recognize the importance of that. So as we talk through this fire, and Noel's going to do a great job, and our ops folks, and this team's working hard, what I want you to realize is there's a strong commitment and a strong vision that where you guys live and what matters to you is important to us as the Forest Service and as all the other agencies we represent. Thanks.
Thank you, Amanda. Now it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Incident Commander for the Pacific Northwest Team 3, Noel Livingston. He's going to give you an overview, some tactics and strategy, and it's a really good time to key in on some of these maps. If you can't see This is being live streamed, and we will post maps on Facebook. So if you're in the far back and you want to come to the sides, that's perfectly acceptable at this time. No limits.
Thanks, Cal. Let's see. What's our options? Oh, okay. Yeah, let's start with the cool left. There you go. We'll start with that. Yeah. Okay. As Cal mentioned, my name is Noel Livingston. I'm the Instant Commander of Pacific Northwest Team 3. I wanted to start off by telling you a little bit about what that means. What's an incident management team? So for large fire management, federal and state and local agencies put together teams. They can then serve as a management resource when we bring in the suppression folks, the crews, the engines, the dozers, and whatnot. And the function of the team is essentially to make a plan on how to deal with the fire, to logistically support the folks, to ensure that they're fed, that we keep track of their time, we keep track of safety, and all of those sorts of things. So that's really the function of a team. Pacific Northwest Team 3 is from Oregon and Washington, so we're made up of federal, Forest Service, BLM, BIA, Park Service employees, as well as state employees, folks working for state agencies, like your North Carolina Forestry, as well as local fire department folks. We come together throughout the course of the year when there's an event like this, and we travel to where the fires are. There are what, Mike? I think right now 16 national teams that do that. Mike's an IC on another one, as he mentioned. So a limited number of those of Type 1 teams that come out and do this, but that's what we're about. So there's 50 of us from Oregon and Washington that came to a fire that was initially all down in Georgia. One of the first things that we do when we get here is establish priorities based upon the folks that we're working for. So our team got what we call a delegation or signed up for work with the Chattahoochee National Forest initially. So my boss at that point was the forest supervisor. Since then, that's expanded to include the forest supervisor of the National Forest in North Carolina, as well as the North Carolina Forestry. So I've got 3 bosses now, but they've given us as a team several missions. The primary one, obviously, put this fire out. So that's why we're here. When we start to figure out how to put this fire out, we set priorities. So, and I want to make this clear, number 1 priority for this team and all the firefighters that are on it is firefighter and public safety. So that's number 1, is your safety out there where you're living, where you're working, and our firefighters that are responding to this incident. So that's a first priority. Our second priority in this case is private land structures and improvements. So once we make sure everybody's safe, we're going to move into doing what we can to protect structures so we don't lose residents, lose improvements, that sort of thing. Our third priority, and there's a bit more of a laundry list that goes with it then, are natural resource values, other improvements across the national forest, those sorts of things. Wildlife habitat, wilderness values, the research facility up at Coweta, those sorts of things come in number 3. So that's how we prioritize how we go about doing work. When we have a lot of resources and a lot of time and a slow-moving fire, those priorities are pretty easy to deal with because we're going to take care of safety, we're going to get around the houses, and then we'll get out there and get a line around it. This particular fire, I emphasize priorities because it's not that easy. We've got a big fire that's moving fairly fast, and we don't have a tremendous amount of resources to get after it, so we're sequentially going through those priorities. So I'll go back to priority number 1, firefighter and public safety. The firefighters, we deal with that in terms of how we align missions and set out their daily missions. Public safety, we're dealing with heavily with your local fire departments, local emergency services folks in terms of the evacuation levels that we set, and the information we get out to you. That's how we're dealing with public safety. Try and, as best we can, to know where you are, what the risk is to you, and make sure you're out of the way. So I want to mention very quickly there are 2 evacuation levels currently being used here. One, and it's both sides of the state line, both in Georgia and North Carolina. The first is a pre-evac level, and that's a notification that you need to be ready. Okay, it's a heads up that there's hazards out there, there's a risk out there, please be prepared. If you need to clean up around your house, get things prepared. If you might have to leave, do so. It's the time to do that. But listen carefully when somebody tells you it's a pre-evac. We've had some folks that just heard evac and didn't hear pre. And we don't want to do that. We want to get the right message out. And the way that will come in Macon County, as I understand it, is a reverse 911, correct? As well as a door-to-door contact. So folks are going to let you know if you're in an area that's under a pre-evacuation notice. The second level of evacuation notice is a mandatory evacuation notice. And we'll recommend, again, to the fire department, emergency services, that a mandatory evacuation is warranted when the fire is getting down to where we anticipate we're going to be fighting fire around your house, that there's imminent risk to you if you're there. That's why we would recommend to the fire department a mandatory evacuation. We'll do that preferably to give you 12 to 24 hours notice. We want to give you time if we do a mandatory evacuation so you can get out in an orderly way, that you can get your things loaded and have your valuables with you and whatever it is you decide to take. So we try to give you as much time as we can. So I just wanted to cover evacuation notices a little bit. Back to that priority number one, life and safety. That's what that's all about. I bring it up because we'll talk about some that are in place, obviously, and more that probably will be implemented soon. The second thing that we do then beyond, or once we figured out human life and covered that, is to develop strategies on how to manage the fire. And I thought before I get into the specifics here, I wanted to talk about how we've done that so far and how this fire's behaved, or not behaved, as the case may be. And I guess we really didn't talk about it, but pretty much all of the incident management teams work upon the same framework. But being from Oregon, you're going to notice that some of the terminology I use, like Appalachian and Appalachian, I'm still working on getting the, so forgive me if it's not intentional if I don't get the names right. Okay, so this map is just a map that shows how the fire has spread over the past week or so. As was mentioned, things are very dry, and this fire has been very active. Fire started down in Georgia, south of, here's Tate City for reference. For those of you that know it, this is Plum Orchard Creek, right down in here. I guess a little further down, right down in here. So the fire started down there. It was what we call an initial attack fire. Folks went in, a heavy response with the local Forest Service, as well as rural fire department folks, primarily out of Raven County, some out of Towns County. They made some excellent headway in terms of getting a line around this fire. When we came into the fire, it was a little less than 5,000 acres, I believe. And folks had done a great job on the southern portion of this fire, down along the road systems and where the fire was burning down to the creeks. This was a big push down toward High Tower, where we had to do some evacuations about a week ago, that sort of thing. Some excellent containment efforts were made. And where we were going in terms of a strategy with this, because we were trying to stay right up as close as we could to the edge of this fire, was we were pushing this thing north, up both sides, because we were dealing with that number 2 value, which was houses. And the north end of this fire was just burning up on some ridge country where there weren't any houses, those lower values up on the national forest. We're pushing it north. Our intention was to hook this thing about the time it came to the Appalachian Trail. We had some options there with hand crews and whatnot. And right about the time we did that was last weekend, and we were really worried about last weekend because we had that cold front passage, and we knew that was going to be a problem. So things did not line up in our favor. We almost, I'll emphasize almost, and it didn't do us any good, got a hook around that top of that thing before the winds hit us, but not quite. What that's done is exposed the northern end of this fire then to all of this country up here in the wilderness along the ridge tops and whatnot, which is very difficult country to get into. So where we've been able to get on it, on the roads and on the creeks, down in the bottoms where access is good, we've been very successful. What's going on now is the fire has established itself up here in this wilderness country where we really, to be quite honest, can't effectively get at it with the crews we've got. Not direct like we were trying to do. So we're falling back to what we call a more indirect strategy. Let's see, let's go to the other map, Stan. Okay, so what does that mean and what does that mean to you? This is just, that's a pretty good map. This is an operational map where you can see divisions as we line our firefighters out and whatnot. Alex will talk about this in a little bit more detail. But again, this upper end where you see all that red is where this fire was free burning. That was a map this morning. The black is where we have line checked around it. This area in here, we haven't painted it black, but we've caught the fire down through here. So this area up here is where the fire is actively burning. We had a line established up to right there and one up to right there. Once we lost this corner, though, what we've had to do is back off to some road systems. So again, I mentioned we were successful on roads, successful on where we could put in dozers, and we realized, particularly on this east side of the fire, in order to be successful with the resources that we have at hand, we're going to have to get back out into some country where we can work and be effective. That's the good news, is we've been very effective there. The bad news is the road systems, as you well know, is where folks live. That's where the houses are and whatnot. So that's the reason for the pre-evacuation notices in the Betty Creek area, Patterson Road area, and coming on out to the east here. Alex will talk about the specific strategies up here in a minute and give you some details. But what I do want to emphasize is we're going to have to use this road system, which means, and Greg mentioned it, we're going to have fire down toward and around private land, potentially around houses, potentially around these communities in particular, until we can get the fire tied back up onto higher ground on the national forest, and then pick up the top end of the fire. So I think we have a good plan, but this exposure was not what we desired, but it's where we're at. Want to mention a couple of things as to why we're there, and I kind of alluded to it. The unseasonably dry conditions that you guys have been facing this fall have led to almost continuous burning 24 hours a day, particularly the last few days. Ordinarily, as I understand it, humidities come up here at night, and well, I've seen it before. Fires lay down at night and then pick back up, midday and on into the afternoon. This fire has been actively spreading almost 24 hours a day. So for the last couple of days, up to a mile or a little better a day. Very active fire spread. The intensity of the fire hasn't changed a lot. We're still looking at 3 to 4 foot flame lengths, so burning about yay high, which is good, because when we can get in there with firefighters and get on that edge, we're successful at checking that. So where we're able to get at it, we're still successful there. We mentioned the resource challenges. One advantage of the strategy we're looking at here is we're getting the fire down to where we can get at it with fire engines. And the one thing we can get right now are fire engines. So that's a good thing. So our local folks can get in at it and show us where things are at. We can get folks from back out west as we bring in more fire resources and get in and deal with the fire. So that's working out well for us. The other piece of this puzzle right now that we're chasing a bit, and it's a little odd as I understand it, is leaf off has been so delayed this year. What that's doing to us is we're having to go back and blow lines again and again and again and again. The challenge there, again, if we go up into the wilderness and we're hiking 5 to 10 miles a day with crews to re-blow those lines, or if we're down on a road where we can do it fairly readily. So again, we're trying to get it down to where we can maintain this into December, to be honest with you. This is a long-term event. I think I'm going to stop there and ask Alex Robertson to come up. Alex is one of our operations section chiefs. He's actually our lead operations section chief. And Alex's role is to, well, he'll tell you, but is to run the show out there on the ground. So I'll let Alex talk to you about where we're at, what we're doing right now, and what we're planning.
Thanks, Noel. So Good evening. My name is Alex Robertson. I'm the one of the operations section chiefs for PNW Team 3, and so as Noel said, I get to move all the parts. So we have a bunch of firefighters, roughly 350, 400 firefighters in our camp right now, and every day we organize, we plan, and we make decisions based on the priorities that Noel mentioned on where those folks are going to go. And that's a mix of resources. It's crews, it's engines, it's dozers, it's different kinds of engines, different kinds of resources that can go to different places and have different capabilities and they're different effective depending on where they're at. So Noel kind of gave you the history of this incident, and what I want to start with is Tate City. So that was the value that was at risk with us immediately when we took the fire, that and Hightower. So we had two operations going on at the same time. The east side of the fire was essentially held up on the 54 road. It hadn't made its way too far north yet into the wilderness, but it was in just starting to come into the wilderness. But we knew we were going to have fire coming down into Tate City, and we knew we were going to have fire that had made it over the Appalachian Trail towards Hightower. So we organized our resources, limited resources at that time, to take some action. And what that was building dozer line, connecting old roads, working with our partners and our cooperators that happened to be in Towns County to stop the fire before it got into Hightower. We had those folks under an evacuation. Since then, that is stabilized over there. It's really in a patrol mode now, and all the folks are back in their house and they can't see fire anymore, and things are really good. In Tate City, Friday, we had fire coming down Mill Creek right here towards the town, and there's, I think, roughly 58 structures in Tate City. And so we did the same thing. We organized with Town County, who protects that, their fire resources. We brought all of our stuff in, we built a plan, we organized it, and Friday day, we burned all the way around Tate City. We had built a line up above the town, away from the houses. We were able to burn that and hold it and get the fire back down to the Tallulah drainage. That was right before our wind event that happened Saturday and Sunday, that cold front that came through that brought us high winds and really, really, really single digit, in some cases, relative humidity, which means the fire burns very actively even though it was really cold. So we were able to hold on to that through the wind event. We were still looking really good over here, all the way up Campbell, the Campbell River drainage, or Coleman River drainage, all the way up to the north. Everything was looking really good, and we'd actually been able to tie that into the AT up in the wilderness. So we had a corner on the fire. Our next set of values that were really that the fire was going to impact next were the 8 homes up here in Clay County, Northern Carolina, that were again because of the wind and because of the fire behavior, we ended up having to burn around those Sunday night. And so we fired around those houses. We were able to do the same thing. We built a line away from them. We brought fire around them. That was very successful, and didn't have any issues there. So next problem is we got fire established in the upper end of Tallulah Canyon. We have Coleman River over here tied into the AT, and then the wind blew, and we had problems overnight. That 24-hour burn period that Noel mentioned, we lost Coleman River, and we had fires south of the Appalachian Trail. That was a place that we did not want fire. We were really working on a bookend, trying to get this corner established, a line going north, to keep anything from moving to the east, because we knew how rough this country was over here, the green grassy ridge country. So we got fire over here, and at this point we have two problems. We have the end of the Tallulah that needs to be tied into the AT to the ridge, and then we have fire that's established down here that's in country that we just can't get to. It was smoked out. The aviation resources, which we had many of, couldn't get in there because of smoke. They just couldn't see, and we were dealing with the rough air from the wind event, and so they weren't able to fly a whole lot. Last night, we had folks, because of this piece of ground being so important to protect all of this, because another really, really tough piece of ground, we had folks that burned from what's called Deep Gap on the Appalachian Trail. They burned this section of line out. And this IR shows a big spot right here, a big red blob. This IR flight, which is an aircraft that flies over, takes some infrared imagery. It provides us some data. We put it on a map so we can see where the fire's edge is. This was taken before they finished burning out. If you looked at this data right now, this would all be red, all the way up into here and across the Appalachian Trail, and we have fire right up in here right now. That's a good thing. That's okay. That's in the middle of the wilderness. We've done a really good job of building our northern line and trying to get a northwest corner on this to protect everything out here. So as we move east, I was able to fly the fire about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. Made it over into Blue Ridge country on the Appalachian Trail, and it's really just a backing fire in here now. It's not doing a whole lot. It's finding fingers, it's finding ridges, and backing its way to the north. Not real active, but producing quite a bit of smoke. And I was able to take a really good look at this piece of ground, which is our big concern. So yesterday, it moved east on us. It wanted to go straight east into Grassy Ridge, and then last night, it turned a corner and went down. It went south. Today, this has moved just a little bit to the south, right down in here, and it's moved just a little bit to the east, about a quarter mile. It's backing. It's an extremely long, active flank. And when I say active, it's a couple foot flame lengths. It's just backing through the leaves, working its way down the hill. We know that we will be down in this country eventually. We don't anticipate it happening fast, but we know that it's going to get there. So what we are doing is we're building our plan and our primary line using a starting point of where we have a good anchor point. So we have good black all the way down here. That's contained. It hasn't moved in over a week. And we're prepping and starting to take road systems. This is Abe Gap to Patterson Gap Road, all the way down to Betty's Creek, to Mulberry, and all the way up to what we're calling Drop Point 16. And that's a place where we have a dozer line built that cuts cross country where there's no road systems and ties into the National Forest System road system. And we're going to take all this road system, thanks Stan, all the way up till we tie into the 67 road system. We take that up, all the way up into, I need to zoom a little bit.
So he's tying into the southernmost road system at the top into Coweta, Dryman Fork, out to the Reynolds Gap, and then back up towards Standing Indian, and then they'll tie into the Nanahato River right there.
Yep, so 67 into Standing Indian, we use Laurel Creek, and then we come down to where we finished burning yesterday, where we know we have fire right out in this area. As Noel mentioned, we were able to get we can get our hands on engines, so rolling stock, roads, trails, dozer lines, that kind of stuff. That's where we're going to have success. This 24-hour burning period, 20 to 24-hour burning period has been an extreme challenge for us because of not being able to be on the fire line for that long. We have a night shift, but that night shift is really a patrol and emergency response to an area that if something flares up, if we have a snag fall, if we have issues near a home that we've burned around, that's all the night shift's able to do. They're not able to be out and be proactive and be aggressive at night while the fire is still extremely active. That system, as of today, the end of shift today, most of this is already prepped and ready to go. We spent a lot of time down here in Kodiak, in Happenso, and the Georgia stuff, and then we spent a lot of time up here in North Carolina in all these subdivisions, planning, building dozer lines, prepping around homes, and making sure that we have coordination with all of our partners and everybody that's going to be in there coordinating and doing the work when we have that problem. When the fire tells us that it's time. What we don't know is there's a lot of terrain in here. There's Betty Creek drainage in here is a great big drainage. There's a great big ridge system that it's working its way down. Which way it goes and which direction and at what time, that's what we're preparing for, is to be nimble, to be able to respond, to be able to move accordingly, depending on where our problem becomes first, and then we'll work from that point. We don't want to be over aggressive. We want to make sure that we're exercising patience, watching the weather, and figuring out what the right timing is for us to take action at any one place. And that has to do with planning and coordination and a lot of ground truthing what we're seeing of what those values at risk are and what our plan is to protect those values at risk. I will stop there and give it back to Cale, and then we go from there.
Okay, thanks. That was very detailed. And we'll do questions at the end. We're going to do one more presentation on smoke, and then we'll go right into questions. Okay? So Jim Buckner is from the Health Director for Macon County Public Health, and he's going to talk to you about the impacts of smoke.
Good evening. In the back, in the right-hand corner of the room back here, we have a guide and smoke index and he's available to anybody that wants a copy. And I'm going to talk about some of the questions that we've been getting at the health department with regard to smoke and how to deal with smoke. First question we get, and it's the one that we get the most, is what are the risks? Anyone can experience health effects when air quality is poor and pollution levels are above code red on the index. Specifically, children, small children whose lungs are still developing can have issues, especially if they are playing outdoors. Older adults, because they're more likely to have lung and heart problems or undiagnosed lung and heart problems. Anyone with respiratory diseases such as asthma or emphysema, and anyone who is frequently active outdoors, including healthy people, as the index goes up. The second question that we have the most is, how do we protect ourselves? In the back of the room, we also have N95 masks, and I'm going to talk about those in a minute. But if you go and you buy a mask, make sure it says N95 on it. We are distributing N95 masks tonight in the back, and we have 3 distribution points, now 4, here in Macon County. We have at the Banana Fire Station, the Health Department, Community Care Clinic up in Highlands, and now beginning tomorrow from the fire station right next door. How can we protect our health? First and foremost is know the code and what they are, and we're going to talk about where to get that information in a minute. Know yourself and your body, be aware of what you're capable of doing and not capable of doing, and know that when there's smoke in the area, even the smell of smoke in the area, that the air quality is poor. So you should limit your outdoor activities, especially code orange or above. And if you have a heart condition or lung condition, take special consideration and try and stay indoors. Don't be outside. Don't do anything that requires exertion, including things in your home if you're smelling smoke in your house. Where do I get daily air quality forecast reports? In the back of the room, we have a sheet. It's the back side of the index. And on the bottom left-hand corner of that, or right-hand corner of that, it tells you can subscribe to the email text forecast notification. And I'm not going to read the addresses. You can check the North Carolina Division of Air Quality, and it gives you the website on that paper. You can check the newspapers, TV, and the weather forecast. Or you can call the air awareness number. It's an 800 number here in North Carolina. One thing you need to remember, and some folks here in this little corner of the state experienced it yesterday. We're in a code green, or the index was green yesterday. It wasn't green for everybody in Macon County. Know that there's pockets within Macon County that the air quality, even though that the report says it's green or that it's higher, that those reports are based on a regional bit of information that's provided to the news media or whomever's reporting it out. But know that if there's smoke, you're probably not in green. If there's a smell of smoke, you're probably not in green. But be aware of that. We recommend that when there are poor air quality days, that you limit your time as much as possible. As I said, check your local air quality reports on TV. Keep your indoor air as clean as possible. If you're in a standard house and you have a standard heating system, try and run your fan during the day. It'll pick up more particulate matter. It doesn't get rid of the smoke smell, but it'll make the air a little bit more healthier. If you're in a commercial building, switch from outside air that's being pulled into the system, turn the system into recirculating air on the building. We've done it at the health department, the hospitals have done it, the nursing homes have done it. So you can switch your system over if you have a commercial system. As I said, we are distributing masks in the back of the room back here, and the 3 locations. One of the things that we're cautioning people on is we're not distributing masks so you put this on and wear it 24/7 at home. That's not the purpose of the mask. It does present a challenge if you wear the mask for a long period of time with your breathing and your heart rate. These are for when you're in your home and you need to go to the doctor or you need to go to the grocery store, and you put it on when you walk from your house to your car. When you get in your car, turn your air system in your car to recirculate and take the mask off. If you get out and there's still smoke where you go, put the mask on to go into the grocery store or into the doctor's office. These are not for long-term use, and we're not recommending long-term use for these. And the last thing, as I said, we have the air quality guides in the back of the room back there. We also have the information on the back side of that of where you can get air quality information. And there's also instruction sheets on how to don and off the mask, how to put it on and take it off, so that the mask lasts longer than one trip to the grocery store. We hope that they last a little bit longer than that. Though we have about 8,000 in the hallway outside my office, so if anybody needs them, we've got plenty of masks. And thank you very much. And we'll answer questions at the end as well.
Thank you, Jim. Any of our cooperators or commissioners, sheriff, we want to say a few words? Okay, now you're anxious for questions. We're going to get right into that. If you do need to leave during the question and answer part, which will last quite a while, we ask you to grab some information on the way out. Also the air quality in the back. Sign up for our email. We also want to thank you for coming. Okay, we'll start with the question and answer. This gentleman over here had his hand up earlier.
Standing Indian is the red fire.
Okay, the question is, how far is Standing Indian from the fire?
So let me get the pointer back. So we have fire right in here. Standing Indian is right up here. Rough guess is 4 or 5 miles at least. It's quite a ways away yet. And the good news is that it's downhill. So what we've seen, what we've experienced on places like that is a backing fire, slow moving. It doesn't have a slope to go up.
Okay, we'll go kind of left side of the room, right side of the room. So we'll go to the right for now.
How far is it right now from the fire tower that's up on off Ball Creek?
Albert Mountain.
Albert Mountain.
How far is it from Albert Mountain?
Albert Mountain.
Help me find Albert Mountain on this map. I know it's right over here. We have a repeater, one of our communications repeaters on Albert Mountain. Is it right there? So we've got a raw station there. Again, that's another 4 or 5 miles from Albert Mountain. Quite a ways still.
Got one question.
Where is Otto on that map?
Question is, where is Otto?
I think we all want to know that.
That's pretty good, right? That's good shape.
What are we worried about?
And we do have a traveling microphone, so Leslie, we'd like your questions to be amplified so everyone in the room can hear them.
Is it going toward Coweta Lab? Is it going down Ball Creek Road, or are y'all going to try to cut it off before it gets to there?
Absolutely. Another one of those values at risk that we know that we've been given direction to protect is Coweta Lab. So that's why we've prepped and have a plan for this road system. Coweta Lab is out here, and so we have a plan to not let fire go into Coweta Lab.
How many miles is that fire from Coweta Lab?
Again, it's 3, 4, 5 miles. It's hard to say, so one of the challenges that we have, and I kind of covered this with the IR. So this flight that showed us exactly where the perimeter is was done at about 10 o'clock last night. And so the fire's had its 24-hour burn period. 12 hours later, we're back out here on this fire. But flying the fire and seeing where the edge is a couple hours ago, is we're still right in here. It didn't move a whole lot today. Put up a lot of smoke. You can see it very visible from the highway and from these residents, but it didn't move a whole lot today. And a lot of that's because it's backing downhill. It's backing against the slope and just working its way down fingers. It's not aligning with the slope and trying to run uphill. So it's still, that whole system out here is quite a ways away. The closest point to our containment line, our primary line, is right down here at the southern end on Grassy Ridge towards Patterson Gap. And that's probably right about a mile still.
Mike Wilkins would like to add a few words.
So some of you know exactly, especially you deer hunters or bear hunters, know exactly where all the roads are in Coweta, but some of you don't. So, you know, when you go to the Coweta lab and you look up, you know, it's like a big horseshoe bowl. And so their for sure alternative is if they're trying to catch that upper road system at the head of Drummond Fork and then pull it out back towards the top and over into the Nanahail River. And I think, you know, they're doing an excellent job. They're working as hard as they can. They've got a good plan. And so they've been talking to Coweta, I've been talking to Coweta, so it should just stay along the top rim, and that's where they plan on catching.
I did have a question from this gentleman. He asked, what if your house is within this line along the road? What if your property is within this big box?
So if your house is to the west or north of that line, okay, the west of that line, we're going to be doing work to try to keep the fire as far from your house as we can, but essentially the road is going to be the line. So we'll be working down around homes where we can get up the hill a little bit with the dozer line. We'll be doing that, but we'll essentially be bringing fire along that road system and around those homes. So that's why it's in a pre-evac condition now. And when we get to that point, we'll recommend to the county a mandatory evacuation. Would be our recommendation. We're gonna, as Alex put it, we're gonna ease fire down in there. So we'll light some fire to bring it down. But this fire, as many of you know, in this country, backs very effectively. And it evens itself out as it goes. We don't want to hurry it. We want to take our time. We have a fire behavior analyst. Let me borrow your pointer there, Alex. We have a guy in camp whose job it is to calculate how fast this fire will move, how hot it will burn, which direction it will go. He works with an incident meteorologist, actually a gentleman from the National Weather Service. Two of them work together, and their job is to figure out, in part, how fast will this work its way down the hill. So to the degree possible, we're going to use that information to gauge our notifications and our recommendations to emergency services on evacuation notices and give folks a heads up.
Yeah, Greg would like to say one more word.
You know, we run into this a lot in North Carolina with landowners who are concerned about the fire backing down towards their structure. You know, and these guys are going to make sure that they have the resources in place, and they'll time this thing out to where if there is a fire that is close to one of your structures, you know, we're going to try to have engines out there, but from the fire department, engines that have been ordered up from across the nation. One of the things I wanted to mention, a lot of people have the questions, why don't you go up in the woods and stop that? Why don't you go up there and just cut a line across? Well, you witnessed what these folks have faced up here on the steeper ground, but there's another reason to that. If you go in mid-slope on the side of the slope and try to put a fire line in, what do you think happens to the debris and stuff that's burning uphill? Okay, it cuts loose, it rolls, and we have what's called rollout. So our best place for our fire line a lot of times with a 1 to 2 foot flame backing fire is to get that thing down in the bottom a little bit so that we're not having to go up there and expose firefighters to risk and then go in and start all over once that fire rolls down the hill and put that line in. And we try our best to educate landowners about that so that if they do have fire coming down near the structures, so that we don't go up mid-slope and put that fire line in. We'd rather be successful the first time, not spend more time, more effort, more money going in mid-slope and putting that line in. And so that's what these guys' plan is, and it's a really good plan when the fire's got this kind of intensity.
Thanks, Greg. More questions?
Could you talk a little bit about, 441 isn't on that map. I know it's to the right of that map. And where you're putting the box in, I'm having a hard time figuring out how close the fire is actually going to get to 441 and the houses that live along 441. Does that make sense?
Yep. How close will the fire get to 441? We'll have Mike answer it again.
A long way. Okay? So, you know, the closest it would get would be the far western edge of Mulberry if things went really bad. But these guys got a good plan, so they're just herding it around here, and then they're cutting back to the west. Okay? So it's not going to get out to 4. Yeah, it's not going to. So it's backing down the hill. And I'll just throw this in, you know, when Smitty talked about the bottom of the hill and the top of the hill, so they were working in drains and ridge tops, you know, and they fought it really hard up there, and so they've lost that opportunity to get the drains, that's lines that are straight up and down, and limited resources. You'll say, later on, you'll second guess some of this team and say, well, why didn't they do this or that? But you got to remember, there's 2 big fires in Virginia, sucked up resources. Kentucky has sucked up resources. Tennessee has sucked up resources. Georgia and North Carolina. So you know, for this time of year, you know, we might have 1 or 2 teams working, and we probably got 7 or 8 teams working. And then for 8 or so days, they were bringing in 6 20-person crews a day from out west, and it really taps stuff out. So they're working.
We have a question in the back.
I was just wondering if is this fire like hot enough to be killing a lot of the trees, or is it killing the undergrowth and not the trees? Or
That's a great question. Is this fire with the 2 to 4 foot flame lengths hot enough to kill all the trees, or what is it actually doing to the landscape?
So sometimes yes, sometimes no. So the ridges and the oak hickory stuff, when it backs through, it gets rid of brush, and it's kind of good wildlife. Some of the coves, it's going to kill some stuff because it is just so dry. And even though the flame lengths are low, the intensity is pretty high, and so the contact time with the heat is long. But it's going to ebb and flow, and you know, nighttime's not as bad as daytime, and then every now and then it'll get down into a hollow, and then it'll run up, you know, that other flank, and then it's going to cook some stuff. You know, if it's got one of these red stem ivy thickets, you know, and you get 20-foot flame lengths or something, then it's going to cook some stuff. But generally speaking, it's not going to be nearly as bad. These guys have been they're trying to be judicious, where they'll need to do some burnout, they will, where they can be very patient and let it back down. That's what they're doing.
What can we do to help the firefighters that come here?
Great question. What can you as a landowner do to help the firefighters?
Okay, I think, well, I think I know what you mean by the question, but let me answer it in a couple of ways. The first thing you can do as a homeowner is do as much as you can around your home if you're in one of these affected areas. So that would be, there we go. In terms of taking care of the firefighters, if that's part of your question, we have, as I mentioned, part of our responsibility is to provide a logistical support mechanism to those firefighters. And so this, I'll be honest, you folks are some of the most generous community I've ever experienced, and I really do mean that. But with that said, we are feeding folks. We have that mechanism in place to take care of folks' needs and that sort of thing. So we appreciate all of the support there, but folks are pretty well taken care of it. I'll be honest, as a Western firefighter, I'm usually sleeping on the ground in the tent, so I got a motel room and I'm pretty happy. and so are most of our firefighters. The one thing I would suggest, if you want to contribute, think about your rural fire departments and what you can do to help them out. And I think that would be a nice thing to do.
Macon County Sheriff Holland would like to say a few words.
I apologize for being one of the elected officials here to have to actually get up here and speak. I know you're tired of hearing people speak, but I thought in listening to all this, there's something really important that you all need to know. I noticed that there's not a lot of LEOs, law enforcement officers here, and as a community, we've all heard about some of these fires being caused by arson, and I know that there's not a single person in here that doesn't want that person caught. So it's important that I let you know that as your sheriff, there's a large, we typically only have one, maybe two officers from the Forest Service, the U.S. Forest Service here. And I can tell you that I've seen as many as 10 of them here this week. And so there's a large contingency of law enforcement officers here. And they're also working with our agency. Donnie Siegel, many of you know him as a school resource officer. Well, for 30 years before he became an SRO at one of our schools, he was a Forest Service officer. And I've reassigned him to be our liaison with the Forest Service now. In his last 3 months, he's retiring in January. So he's done full circle around. And so he's a liaison, and they're working actively. Another thing that I think it's important that you all know is even the governor recently announced a reward of $10,000 to the conviction and arrest of the individuals that are involved in this. And they've released our Macon County Crime Stoppers number through that. So we're getting actually calls from all over the state of North Carolina. Not even our fire here, but they're calling about in other parts of the state. So that number is getting out, and I see them holding up that number. But any of you that have a pencil or a pen, I want you to write our local Crime Stoppers number down. Whoever's setting fires, if there's anybody setting fires, and I'm not going to go into that, but you've heard them talk on the media and in the news about some fires have been arson. Somebody has seen them. Somebody has seen something. No matter what little bit of information you have, it's important to us. And so don't hesitate. Our Crime Stoppers, you can remain totally anonymous. It's a non-traceable phone. So feel free to call. Feel free to share that number. It's 349-2600. I apologize. I didn't know I was going to speak. But the governor also announced Jackson County, Silva's Crime Stoppers number 2. And it's on some information that's in the back. And I can't remember that number. But you all are from Macon County, live here in Macon County, so I want you to know that number, and I want you to share that number, and please don't hesitate to talk about it. Talk about it amongst your friends, family, churches, business. Talk it up, because somebody's seen something. Okay. Okay, great. I don't have my glasses on. What's that second number?
I have to take mine off. So the second number for Jackson County is 828-631-1125.
Anybody here live in Jackson County? 349-2600. That's the only number you need to know right now. At this time, Ronnie Beal, our county commissioner, he'd like to speak as well. Yes, sir.
I've been involved with floods. Are you bringing in any more resources? They told us to evacuate from the flood. Right behind King of Thieves. Clean up your house.
I can tell you, and I don't mind it being publicly said, we have officers who just today found out about the pre-evac, and just today got notice that they would be working. So we will have a large contingency. That's another. Thank you for asking that question, because it brings me back to another. Peaks Creek. How many lived here during the Peaks Creek disaster? Okay. Did anybody live on Peaks Creek at that time? Well, my family did, and I was a brand new sheriff back then. And I can tell you that people got really aggravated because they came to where they lived and they got confronted by my officers over and over and over again. We apologize for that. That will happen again. But just understand that when you come to your house, we don't know that's where you live, and that officer that asked you, he may be the same officer that you told this morning, but he's probably not going to remember you. So he's going to ask for your ID. He's going to verify that. And he may not be the officer that was there this morning, so you may have a new officer. I'm going to ask them not to just go on their memory, to ask for those IDs. So we're going to ask for you, if you do leave your home, and if that comes to that, just be patient with those officers that are asking you for that. We also go with the Forest Service. We also go with any of the fire departments that ask us to go on these evacuations. And just feel free to call us if you have any questions. And I want to give a shout out to Warren Cabe, who's our emergency director here. He's done an outstanding job as well as the health department. And on behalf of our community, on behalf of the Sheriff's Office, we just want to thank you all for representing and also for doing what you're doing for our community. Thank you. Ronnie Beal.
I think it's important that you know what you
county commissioners know and don't know, we cannot thank these folks enough for keeping us informed about what's going on. First of all, you need to know this is just one of the fires in Macon County. This is just one of them. First of all, your 11 fire departments are all active. Your 11 fire departments have all been on scene of fires. Otto, of course, is on this fire, and all 11 fire departments have been very active, as Warren said. Talk about Warren Cave and EMS, as Robbie said, and Todd Siegel, 911. You should be very proud of your departments inside your county. I believe they'll all attest, these folks will tell you the professionalism that they show and how they've conducted themselves and not only the hospitality, but these folks, we at one time had folks here from 47 states in Macon County. And so this is new for us, fellow Maconians. This is we've been through some different things. We've been through Peak Creek, we've been through floods, tornadoes, hurricanes. We're always with the higher ground. You can't go to higher ground in a fire. So this is new to us. But these folks who have come to fight these fires, without them, and if you went out to Caterpillar, and if you need to take a shout out to Mr. Phil Drake for donating this facility, as they'll tell you, it's one of the finest setups for a command center that they've had. But these folks, they do this for a living, and I, like you all, we don't know a lot about fighting fire, unless it gets the lead get caught around your house. So they are very professional, but your commissioners are keeping track of it very closely. We are keeping informed for y'all that this is so important. Some of you are here tonight have elderly neighbors that are not at this meeting that need to know. You wouldn't be having this meeting tonight unless it's a serious situation. This is informative, yes, but it's a serious situation, or you wouldn't be here tonight. So please listen carefully and take to heart what you've heard tonight. This is a serious situation. Tellico, for instance, was a very serious situation. They lost one outbuilding of all the things that was in danger in Tellico. And that's because of the bravery and the dedication of these men that's fighting these fires. So folks, if you can't give all these folks a big hand for what they have done for our community. The trees will grow back, the vegetation will grow back. It'll just take time, it'll grow back. What will not, if someone gets injured or a loss of life. So take to heart what's being said. We're pretty tough folks here. We'll get through this too. But the county stands ready to help any neighbor that needs help. The EMS service stands ready. Our county manager, Derek Roden, stands ready. All county resources stand ready to help any way we can. So, and this is one of the strongest community in our county. And I know you all will stand with each other. So we appreciate y'all very much. So, before you go to bed tonight, whether you pray or not, pray for two things. Number one, rain. Number two, these gentlemen that's out there at night, every night and every day, that's protecting your resources and your homes and your lives. So remember these folks before you go to bed tonight and pray. So thank you so much.
We're going to do the questions in 1 second. We have Emergency Services Director Warren Cave's going to say one word, and then we will do the questions.
Thank you all. My name is Warren Cave. I am the Emergency Services Director for Macon County. And I actually had a question over here that I wanted to answer publicly for everybody else. A lot of people are asking about the notifications for evacuations. One of the primary methods that we get that notice out to you is through our reverse 911 system. Normally when you have a problem, you call 911. But in certain circumstances, when there's a problem in your area, we will call you and let you know. We have a system like that in Macon County. It's called the Code Red system. And if you have any questions about that, you can log on to our webpage at www.maconNC.org. We'll be glad to provide you that information after the session is over. You can sign up through there, and if you don't have access to that, you can call our 911 addressing office, and our staff will help you get signed up. Now, if you're not like me, and sometimes you're not a computer person and you don't have access, I know there are places particularly in Mulberry and those areas that you either don't have good cell coverage or you don't have internet coverage. That's a whole other topic we're dealing with. we're going to come knock on your door. We're going to leave you notices. We have been heavy in your neighborhood, particularly in Mulberry, all of that section right through Betty's Creek right there that's in the North Carolina side, to make sure that you're notified of anything that's going on. So we will make sure you know when the time comes. The one thing that I want to pass on to you, we've been working with these folks, the PNW3 team, for about a week now. We stay up to date with them on a daily basis on what's going on. We've also done this with the Tellico fire and the Farabee fire. The strategy that they're using works. I can promise you, we've been on the ground today with Division Supervisor that's doing structure protection for Alex. He has a really good plan. And I don't want you to be concerned when we do that pre-evacuation notice. Our trigger point is 6 hours. We want 6 hours before there's an imminent threat to that structure before we want you to evacuate. They're going to give us 12 to 24 hours. So we've got plenty of time. I want you to understand, this is not an event that's going to sweep through that whole community in an hour. This is a slow process. It's a slow backing fire. We saw it in Fairview over in Nantahala. We saw it in Silver Mine over in Swain County with the Tellico fire, and we're seeing it here. So we've got time to do the right things, and I can promise you they have a good plan. This is a good plan, and it's the best thing possible at the moment to take care of your issue there.
All right, thank you, sir.
Got a couple questions. What distance do we need to blow the leaves away from the houses and our structures?
Great question. What distance do you need to blow away the leaves from your structures? And we do have, just so you know, in the back room, we have Laura Mahoney and her prevention team that are here in the state of North Carolina doing fire prevention education. And so you can pick up written information about that. But Alex, do you want to give an exact spec?
So when we're going in, I'll just kind of big picture, when we go in and address the structure, we're looking at a lot of things, how close to a slope it is, snags, trees, all of those things that are close to it, firewood stacked up, anything that can catch an ember that will catch on fire from something flying towards it, an ember flying towards it from something on fire. So depending on the structure, it kind of depends on the answer, but there's things that we certainly want to do. We want to get leaves back at least 30, 40 feet. If you can do that, depending on if there's slope in the way, sometimes that's harder, but get the leaves away from the house. We often make trails, so we blow lines and we clear a 10, 12-foot swath out of the leaves. If we have time, we're going to take all the leaves out. Instead of just a swath, we're going to take all the leaves out, because any leaf that's still left near a home, gutters, roof lines, any of that can catch embers and become a problem for us. So get the leaves away if you can. Firewood will catch embers, and that becomes a problem for us. So many times we'll take firewood and get it away from the house. We'll trim bushes, we'll trim trees, stuff like that that's hanging over, that especially if it's dead, because that'll catch on fire, fall over, and cause us problems. That's been our the primary thing that's caused us problems on any line that we've built is snags. They burn up at nighttime when we're not there. They fall over, put fire on the other side of us, and drains and every place that we've tried to stop the fires. So we're really, really aware of snags, and that's a big deal.
Okay, I got one more, and then I saw a hand in the front up there. So
I have two questions, if that's okay. The first one is partly a statement. I'm really more than angry at the arsonists that are causing these fires. I know that I've heard that some of them have been caught. I'd like to know that they aren't being let out on bail. And I'd like to see a fund set up so that the community can contribute to the $10,000. That just seems like a drop in the bucket for someone to turn maybe a friend in. If we can get that figure up really high, it's more incentive for someone to turn someone in. I think if a lot of people in the community contribute a little, we can get that fund a lot higher. But like I said, I'd like to know that the arsonists aren't being let out. And I'd also like to know, it's a large area that's being burned. I'm a little concerned about the wildlife. Their food supply is being destroyed. And is there any way that can be temporarily helped for them?
That's a great question. We're going to ask about, in a fire this big with this much landscape, what happens to the wildlife? And Amanda will answer that for you.
Hi, so one of the things that we're concerned about on the National Forest is all the resources we have. That's wildlife, that's cultural resources, water, everything that we have out there. What we do when we manage these fires is we have resource advisors that work out there to ensure that while we're managing these fires for all these priorities, we're considering that as much as we can. There are long-term impacts, I'm not going to lie to you. And the reality is we have to make trade-offs. Right now it's pretty clear to us, as much as we don't want this fire to be burning across, as many acres as this fire is on the National Forest, especially cumulatively with all the others, the reality is it's an easy choice to choose protection of structures over allowing some of that wilderness ground to burn. So I think there are impacts. I do think we often forget the animals are capable of getting out of the way of the fire. It's also a mosaic burn, so it's not every acre and every inch that burns. With the fire spread and the fire behavior, I think we're probably generally in pretty good shape, but I don't want to sugarcoat it. There probably are some impacts.
Okay, we got a question right here.
That reminds me of another question as far as livestock is concerned and the impact of the smoke on livestock, horses, etc. Some of the guys out west probably have seen a lot of that. Do we have any areas or any volunteers that may take on livestock should the smoke get to a point where it endangers those?
Everybody hear that question? That's in the event that livestock get impacted, are there any mitigations or places they can go?
There were actually some resources were brought into Macon, Clay, and Swain County from the Department of Agriculture. We have some temporary housing facilities in case that is necessary if we need to move those. That would be coordinated through Mr. Joe Deal and Mr. Alan Durden through the Extension Office. I do know that they are well aware and they have published some information. They have some stuff that's available to talk to folks to explain what the problems might be. But we do have the capability both for large animals for the stuff for Department of Agriculture and some smaller stuff through what we call a CAMIT trailer, which will house smaller animals through the health department if we need to.
Does this still relate pretty close to the livestock as it was to humans? You know that?
It will be similar. However, the effects are not as dire on livestock as that. I would have to actually refer that to the Extension Office, but I'll be glad to get you some more information and make them get in contact with you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I was just wondering if you have to evacuate, if there would be a shelter available, and if so, would your pet be able to come with you?
Great question. If you're asked to evacuate with that warning, would you be able to go to a shelter, and would your household pets be able to go with you?
Yes, ma'am. There are actually two ways we'll handle that. In a dire emergency, we have what's known as an evacuation location. We would ask you to go to a central location in your community. For instance, when we were looking at the Tellico fire, we were going to move folks to the Cali Baptist Church as a temporary place to stay till we got our shelter open, and we would move folks to a shelter. The Department of Social Services and the Health Department actually staffs our emergency shelters in Macon County. They are on standby. Those preparations are ready and there if we need them. And again, we do have housing for your pets through what's called our CAMIT program through the Health Department and Animal Control. So we would help you make those arrangements.
So thank you. Two questions. Where did the fire start? And when you do a burnout around a building, if you could just describe how that happened.
Okay, two great questions. Where is the point of origin? And when they do a strategic firing operation around the house, how big is that? What does that look like?
So the first question, this fire was actually two fires. So this is the Tallulah River Canyon, Tallulah River Road. The fire started somewhere, two fires, one on each side of the river, and eventually just became one fire. And so we've managed it as one fire, even though there's a pretty good road system and a river drainage through the middle of it, but it's essentially one fire. So right down in here, initial values at risk were Nickel Canyon and some of the structures along the 54 road over here. So what does it look like to burn around a structure? We talked about patience, we talked about a backing fire. What we did and what we've done around all of the stuff in Tate City, for instance, is as the fire's coming down, our firefighters will be out there, they have the area cleared, and so they know where the edge of the fuel bed is. The fuel bed is generally just going to be leaves. As the fire's backing down, what they'll do, and because we've done this a lot, we have a lot of great video of it, is light small dots. So with either a fusee, a flare, or a drip torch with a fuel mixture in it, and they'll light small dots. And what those dots will do is start growing and expanding very slowly. And as those dots grow together, they go out because there's no more fuel. Those dots will eventually go out and work their way back to the backing fire, the main fire that's coming down. And what we don't want to do is build a lot of intensity. So if the main fire is still a long ways away, especially if it's upslope from a home, we don't want to put fire on the ground at the back of the home because of the intensity that that fire will build, especially if it's going upslope or if it has wind behind it, because that's where you get those impacts to the vegetation, to potential wildlife, any of those things, trees. That's the intensity that we build could do that damage. So we're trying to allow the fire to back, low intensity, and then we put enough fire in the ground to where that low intensity fire isn't going to impact the structure. And we'll do that over and over and over again. The leaf litter doesn't burn very long, so once it's done, we leave somebody to patrol, and then we go to the next one, and we continue to work as the fire's coming down towards the homes.
Got a question?
Okay, you were talking about Standing Indian, going up to Standing Indian and trying to hold the fire there. You're talking of back burning it towards where it is now from Standing Indian, and waiting for it to go to Standing Indian?
Okay, to repeat the question, the Standing Indian area, are we going to back burn down to the fire or let the fire get to it?
So same thing with Standing Indian as all the other values at risk is as the fire approaches, that's when we'll start putting the fire on the ground as it's approaching our containment lines. We have found, and this is very interesting, that when we've put fire on the ground before, especially if the main fire isn't close, the rhododendrons are burning. That fuel type that we've been told by locals that has never been available to burn, it's dry enough to where that burns. And so that intensity is something that we don't want. We don't want that kind of fuel. We don't want the brush burning. We don't want leaves coming off and floating and landing in more leaves to start more fires behind us. So our intent is it's a patient strategy. It's allow it to back and then put fire on the ground just enough to put another low intensity fire to run into the main fire, and then it's done. And so it doesn't matter what the value at risk is. We don't want to put a bunch of fire on the ground. We know we will be burning in front of this fire, and we're going to strategically do that, but we don't want to build intensity. That's something that hasn't worked out for anybody on any of these large fires, as we're talking with other folks that are having successes and challenges on the many fires in the region.
Okay, thanks for that.
Can I please have a response from law enforcement regarding what happens to an arsonist when they're caught?
Chair, look at you.
I didn't know if the U.S. Forest Service, this is a U.S. Forest Service and North Carolina Forest Service investigation. We are just assisting. Who was it that asked that question? Okay. Basically, the answer to your question is, and I've talked with him about this, there's been about 25 fires that have been set, or 25 fires. Not all of them have been arson. I know of a couple that have been arson that they've suspected. Okay, at least half. He said it. I didn't say it. But anyway, there have been no arrests. Nobody's out on bond. Unfortunately, with our bond system, other than murder, everybody gets an opportunity to make bond. And I mean, let's have them at the courthouse square, you know. But anyway, that's a different story. But to answer your question, to be totally honest with you, there have been no arrests. They are actively following up on leads. They're taking information. We're passing information. We're sharing information. My reason for speaking earlier is to let you know there are law enforcement officers out there North Carolina, U.S., and Macon County, and all over western North Carolina, because there's fires everywhere, that are actively working and trying to resolve this. Because we too want to catch this individual, or these individuals. Did I answer your question? Good.
And I'll add a little bit to that, and I know that the U.S. Forest Service is very similar. In North Carolina, we're tracking the cost of these fires, and these incident management teams are not only in place just to provide logistical support and also put the fire out, but they have a finance section, and there's a lot of costs associated out here with these fires. So, on all these fires, especially with the U.S. Forest Service, and Mike, I'll let you speak to this, is these finance sections have been told, especially if there is a human-caused fire, there's two types of human-caused fires. There's intentional and non-intentional, right? So they are tracking the cost. Not only is there a potential for that person to be charged criminally, but they also can be held financially responsible. So that's being kept in our minds on all of our financial tracking of these fires, and all these incident management teams that are in the area are aware of that also. And so they're not just tracking costs, and that's what makes it difficult for these teams when they're handling multiple fires like they are at the Nantahala branch, but they're tracking that cost by codes on a lot of different fires out there. Mike, you got anything to add to that?
No, just to say it is very much a cooperative effort with Robbie's folks and the North Carolina Forest Service and the U.S. Forest Service working on whatever comes in, whatever leads found, whatever folks tell them. And that's about how far as we can go at this point. So.
Got a question in the back?
We're going to do 2 more questions. Then we're going to do a prayer by Sharon for the firefighters. We're going to do a break there for the night. And if you have more questions after that, we'll be here. You can see we have a whole bunch of folks you can talk to individually. 2 more questions.
This particular map that's up there, as it gets updated, will it be available to us on the internet so we can kind of follow at home what's going on?
Yeah, great question. Will this map, and as it progresses every day, be available? Yes, so the information cards up here, these small business cards, and these email sign-up sheets, we send you the update to your inbox. We also, on the information cards, have the NCWeb page. That's every fire in this area, all the geographic areas have their own page, and the map is updated every day. There's also the acreage, containment, all those kind of facts and figures on there. And you can also call us. Numbers on there. Okay. 1 more question?
I got 2 actually. Can you just point the lab out on the map one more time for me?
We all got that, the lab? Yeah. And our line is here.
And then 1 more.
And then you were talking about human cause, was it 50%, did you say? And if so, is that 50% human cause unintentional or intentional?
Okay, Mike, now you got yourself. So the question is, if of the 24 fires, 50% are arson.
Oh, okay, so you're saying they're human cause intentional.
Let's just put it this way. Out of the fires we've had in the last 4.5 weeks, more than half of them are of suspicious origin, and we think they're arson fires. Okay? So, sometimes there's accidental fires. Early on, there was a couple probably way up a slope, maybe a hunter smoking out a coon in a hollow tree. Arsonist is not going to climb half a mile up through the road to set a fire. So that'd be unintentional. And every now and then, maybe debris burning or, a chainsaw doing some real honest work. And then it's dry enough now that even when they were working on the fire, the Maple Springs fire in Robbinsville, cutting dangerous snags on the line, they had 2 and 3 fires start from their own chainsaw, so they had to be very careful.
So we're going to close in just a second. Just a reminder, we have the fire prevention information in the back. We have Judith Downing from the North Carolina Forest Service. She's a public affairs officer. She can answer your questions. We have Jim and the department, Tammy, are here to talk about your health. And all of us are here. On behalf of the firefighters, I can assure you they feel incredibly welcomed here. This is a type of fire where it's 20 plus degrees in the morning. It gets warm or not throughout the day, and then it gets 20 plus degrees or cold at night, and they're working sometimes till 2, 3 in the morning. So on behalf of them, we want to thank you for your amazing Southern hospitality, for making us feel at home during the holidays. And Sharon, you have a chance to give a prayer for the firefighters.
While you're all in bed tonight, in your nice, snuggy, warm beds under your comforters and everything, I want you to think about these guys, okay? Think about how cold it is out there. Think about how dry it is and how hard they're fighting and working for us. Thank you. God bless each and every one of you. I think some of you saw me passing these stars out to them. I don't know if you saw what they were. These are stars from a retired flag. Okay, I cut these out and I put them in these little bags and I pass them out to every cop I see, every EMT, every firefighter, all of our first responders, and it's just to say thank you because I love them so much, and every soldier that I see and every veteran that I see, because I love them so much, because I'm so free and I'm so safe, and I have been for almost 72 years now. Woo-hoo. Come January, that's the big day. Whoa. But anyway, I'm not ashamed to say it. I look pretty good for a 72-year-old broad. Anyway, thank you. I want to close this evening by saying, take a minute from this very busy life that we live and remember to say thank you to these folks who keep us safe. These men and women who are out there every day putting their life on the line for us. Do something. Stop your car, get out, and give a cop a donut. Give him some cookies. Stop by the police station and drop off some cookies. Bake them a cake. Stop by, give the EMTs something. Say thank you. Just give them something to let them know how much you care, how much they mean to you. And when you go to bed tonight, please do. Say a prayer for them, because they're out in the cold tonight while you're home and in bed. So let's say a little prayer for all of our first responders. Heavenly Father, Creator of all, please look down upon us this evening as we gather here for a common cause. To thank our firefighters for taking care of us and keeping us safe. Please keep them warm, keep them safe, keep them protected, and make sure that they know in their hearts that each and every one of us are thinking of them, that we are praying for them, and that we are asking for your blessing upon them. Keep us safe. Please, please send us some rain. Please, we ask you. In your name, we pray. Amen.
Thank you all. Thank you, Sharon. On behalf of Mike Wilkins and the Forest Service, on behalf of the Benji of the state, and Greg from the state, all our cooperators, Otto, our chief, Otto, and everybody here, thank you so much for the county, the health department, all of us online. Appreciate you.